Welcome to Leaders and Loggers, the podcast that quenches your thirst for leadership knowledge one pint at a time. Grab your favorite brew, sit back, and join us as we raise a glass to the world of leadership. I'm your host, Kevin Dawson, and each week we'll bring you refreshing conversations with leadership experts from around the globe. We'll dive into the minds of CEOs, thought leaders, and change makers, sipping on the secrets of their success. From the boardroom to the brewery, our guests share their unique perspectives on what it takes to lead in today's ever-changing world. Well, welcome to Leaders and Loggers. I'm your host, Kevin Dawson, and today I am joined by my new friend, Monica Rothgery. Monica is a coach, a speaker, and the author of a really cool book called Lessons from the Drive Thru, which we're going to hear more about. But Monica, welcome to the Leaders and Loggers podcast.
Thank you, Kevin. I told you would be my first, and I held true to my word. You are my first live podcast.
I'm so excited because, we got to role play a little bit. What a lot of people have kind of learned over the last couple of weeks that we've got a lot of great friends through our mutual connection, Brian and Gab Boucher. And so we met in Fort Worth and did some podcast, role play podcast reels and whatnot. And I had a lot of fun because you jumped up there and said, "Hey, I'll jump up there and role play and put you on the spot," which was a lot of fun. So I am really excited to finally get a chance to sit down and talk to you, because getting to know all of you and your stories, there's so many great leaders in that group. And there's so many great lessons that people who listen to Leaders and Loggers podcast, they need to hear those lessons from amazing people like you. And so what I'd love to do first and foremost is talk about the beer that I'm drinking. I know you brought bourbon because you live in the bourbon capital of the world.
What are you drinking, Kevin? What are you drinking?
So I am drinking, this is the No Santa by Sloop Brewing out of Hampton, New Hampshire.
No, or K-N-O-W or N-O? Like no Santa, or
no Santa, like as N-O. So Santa is missing from the sleigh.
Oh, he's missing. Okay.
He's missing from the sleigh. Looks like he jumped on an airplane and flew away.
Well, I don't know if there's no Santa, how I'm going to get my bourbon, but I'm coming to you from Louisville, Kentucky. And as hard as I tried to find a nice lager or an ale, I had to show up with the bourbon. So I picked a nice Buffalo Trace to share with you today. Cheers.
Cheers.
And here's to a great podcast. Keep out such a great show, and you do such a great service for so many leaders. So
well, thank you so much. Cheers. I am a little jealous because I do love Buffalo Trace. People know that like I drink beer on this show, but like my go-to off air is bourbon.
I did not know that.
And if I just drank nothing but beer, I would turn into Santa Claus.
Well, you need to get over here come on over to Louisville, and we'll go.
Yes.
Some distilleries.
I am game for that. Well, Monica, I love for our audience to hear your story, because you've got a really neat story, which I know that you've packaged into your upcoming book. And I think there's so many great lessons for leaders, because there's so many of them that have started at the very bottom and worked their way up. People are listening like, "Yay, I just started. How do I grow my career?" Or maybe I've been in my career for a long time and I've forgotten what it's like to be at the front line. And I know that's where your heart is really working with those frontline managers and those teams. And
it is.
So I'd love for our audience to hear that story.
I love them. I love those guys. So I started my career as a restaurant manager for Taco Bell, working at a drive-thru restaurant. I ran a Taco Bell for almost 5 years. And I was not the best Taco Bell restaurant manager, candidly. I had just gotten out of the military. I was a second lieutenant in the United States Army, and leading soldiers was not the same as leading team members. When I told soldiers to do something, they pretty much do it, right? And they know how to do it because they've gotten lots and lots and lots of training. However, when I got to my Taco Bell, people didn't necessarily do what I told them to, and they oftentimes didn't know how to do their jobs. So that was a long 4 years of really learning how to lead. And but those lessons, that the things that I learned, they stayed with me throughout my entire restaurant career. And I ended my career working as the chief operating officer for KFC in the United States. So I went from running one restaurant to leading 4,000 restaurants, but I never forgot where I started. And my heart is always with all those managers working the drive-through.
You know, there's something to be said for fast food management, because it seems like everybody wants to complain about fast food and just the service that's out there. And I don't know if it's just part of the culture that we've kind of shifted, where there's so many other things that have kind of come online to kind of change the processes within the fast food industry, either streamline it, take people out of it. I know in Texas there's a couple of McDonald's that are pretty much just driven by robots. Very few people, and it makes it hard for somebody to be in a position where, yeah, you're working with people who aren't earning a whole bunch of money. They're trying to just do a job, and it's a thankless job sometimes. And so how do you motivate people in that position? Because I know it's not easy when people are screaming at you that, oh no, you messed up their order, and you've inconvenienced me now.
Yeah, I mean, there's 200,000 fast food restaurants in the United States. 200,000. And those restaurants, by and large, are run by, brand new leaders, right? People who have worked their way up from, a cook or a dishwasher, maybe to shift manager. Now they're running multi-million-dollar businesses. And the thing about QSR fast food restaurants is it's a production facility. In other words, we literally make the product inside the four walls, and then 10 feet from where we make it, we turn around and sell it. So it's a retail store and a production facility. So you kind of have to know how to lead manufacturing, in a sense, and how to sell. And then you've got 30 to 40 team members who are oftentimes first jobbers, with the least amount of training. So how do you motivate them? The amazing and most beautiful thing about this group, by and large, is they want to do well. They're often so excited to be in the role that they're in. Frankly, they make pretty good money. Restaurant managers in fast food make pretty good money. They have potentials to make bonuses often. And so they want to do well. The thing is, they just oftentimes don't know how. And they only know what they've seen. And what they've seen is the person who was the boss of them when they were the team member, which probably and oftentimes wasn't the best role model. So my passion, as you know, is to kind of help these guys learn how to lead.
And I love that. And at one point in time, we were all a first-time manager. Yep. where we had our first job. I don't know about you, but my first job, I worked in a little snow cone hut in front of our mall. I still have not had a snow cone since then, because I ate so much.
Do they even make snow cones anymore? I don't even know if they make snow cones anymore.
There's still places here, at least here in the South, because it gets hot. So, snow is not one of the things that we get. So, but it does get stupid hot down here. So, snow cones and ice cream and things like that. But I didn't have a great manager. It was just.
Do you remember that person?
Yes, I do.
What was their name?
So my manager was it was my friend's parents. They owned it. Yeah, even better. And they moved away. It was Tori. Tori was her parents.
There you go.
And and they were a great couple. But they just kind of said, here's how you make a snow cone. Here's how you pour the syrup, and here's how you collect the money. And then at the end of the night, just tally up what you sold. That was all the training I got.
There you go. You're running a business now.
And I'm like, what happens when somebody's like, we're like 20 people deep in line, and people are screaming at me like, hey, we can only go so fast. It's just me and Dean over here who are trying to do our best to get things done. And you're paying us minimum wage plus tips. So like, and granted, like we're 16 years old.
Right. That's exactly right. Now, everyone remembers their first boss.
Yeah.
My first boss, to answer your question, I worked at Chuck E. Cheese. And everyone starts out dressing up as Chucky. And what I learned is if the faster I learned how to make pizzas, the quicker I could get out of that hot, stinky costume. And I talk about this in my book, Lessons from the Drive Thru. But the first thing the kids come in, when they came into my restaurants, the first thing they would do is look at the schedule to see who the closing manager was. I did the same exact thing when I was 16. I'd race to the back, I'd look at the schedule, and if it was Rita or Jim, it was a good night because Rita was gonna sit in the office and talk on the phone all night. I don't know where Jim was. He was probably out in the game room playing video games. But if it was Dee Dee, it wasn't going to be an easy night because she was on it. Like she would run her fingers across the top of the equipment to make sure that everything was clean underneath the handles. And so you remember these people. I remember Dee Dee. And in fact, I learned a lot from Dee Dee. I learned about how to close, how to clean, how to follow up on your team. But too often, unfortunately, first boss memories aren't good ones.
Right.
And then that shapes how that person then thinks about work, about leadership, about management. And so my passion is like, let's create great first job experiences for the next generation of workers, great role models so that they can grow up with an advantage, with an edge, and become great leaders themselves.
I love that. And because those managers for those first time employees, like that's also the first time management position for a lot of those people. A lot of those people. It's like, yay, I'm leading people. Yay, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Exactly.
It's and far too many times, I know you've seen it, I've seen it, where the organizations are like, here, read this. Here's all your leadership training. And it doesn't really do a bunch for anybody. It's more of here's how you manage the business.
Right.
There's no part of here's how you manage people.
That's right. That's exactly right. They're proficient because oftentimes they came up through the ranks. So they know how to do all of the things, whether it's make pizza or burgers or tacos or chicken. They know how to run the equipment. But what they don't know how to do is find the right people, train and develop, coach, deal with conflict, set team goals. And they kind of just, like I did, do our best. And I was, I had advantage. I had military leadership training. They don't have that. And you just kind of hope and do your best. And along the way, unfortunately, they make a lot of mistakes. So, my passion is to really kind of help start to provide some stories, some frameworks so that these first-time leaders have a fighting chance to not suffer the way I did.
It's people like you who take that time to say, look, especially with working with first-time leaders, it's look here. A lot of times it is the stories from firsthand experience. The School of Hard Knocks is a great teacher.
Right.
And I think what first-time leaders need to hear from leaders like you've been there is we've all screwed up at some point. We've all failed ourselves. We've not done well, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my book, is about when I was a restaurant manager. There are stories from when, I was there, first person, and they are not shining stories of greatness. There are stories of when I really suffered or struggled. And, there's a lot of leadership books out there written by executives for executives or for middle level or senior managers. There are very, very few leadership books out there written for the frontline leader. And I hope through the stories, because like no one wants to be lectured to, no one wants to be told. But I hope through the stories they can see their own restaurant, they can see their own team, and they can possibly learn, like I said, some of the very basic things. When I think senior people read my book, they might be like, well, that's kind of pedestrian. But for them, it's not. Simple things like, they won't care about you until they know without a shadow of a doubt that you care about them. Super fundamental, but yet that's not fundamental to these frontline leaders. I was in a Taco Bell, so one of the things I like to do is go into restaurants and sit in the dining room and watch. And the manager was with her, I'm pretty sure assistant manager, and they were at a table. I could hear their entire conversation, and she was going off on him loud enough that as a customer just sitting there eating my crunch wrap, I could hear it. You want to run more night shifts? You can't even run the shifts I give you. You need to start, and going on and just lighting into this poor guy. Their conversation ends, and he goes back to the kitchen. She's out there still on the phone or doing something. And then I hear him do the exact same thing to the shift manager. The shift manager's on the drive-thru. He's like, you need to get her trained. And he was pointing at a team member. She needs to know how to do inventory already. She's been working for 2 weeks. And the guy was like, the shift manager was like, I've only had her a couple times. So he modeled exactly what just happened to him. Meanwhile, I was watching all the team members just scared, working scared. And I was like, this is a terrible toxic environment, right? I went to another Taco Bell, and the manager was literally, every time she talked to a team member, her name was Caitlin, I talk about her in my book, she would say, thank you, I love you. And the first time she said it, I was like, what did she say? And then somebody called on the phone. Okay, no problem. Yeah, we can cover it till you get here. Somebody had called in to say they were coming in late. No problem. Okay, thanks, I love you. So I knew I had to meet this manager, and she's an amazing manager who creates an amazing environment. Not surprisingly, has developed a ton of other managers. So you have two people in the same position, but both influencing the people underneath them and creating their experiences. One, I would want my children to work for, the other, not so much, right? So how do we get more people like Caitlin? That's the question, right?
I love that story. And you're right. Like I kind of had the same reaction as you kind of retelling that story. Thank you. I love you. Wait, what did she say? Because it's, you don't equate that with the workplace at all. Like I'm used to hearing, hey, thank you. I love you from my mom. You know, I'm not used to hearing that from my boss. Now, granted, there was a time I worked for my dad. I would hear thank you. Very rarely was it when we go, thank you, I love you. Because men just don't. That's not our thing. But there was a care factor there.
There's a care factor.
And I think there's, to your point, like people will not care about what they do until they know how much you care about them. That's so key. And I think so many leaders miss out on that. We all talk about the golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated. But I try to push it even further. The so-called platinum rule: treat others the way they want to be treated.
Yeah, wow, that's a great distinction. It's a great, because they may not want to be treated the way you want to be treated, right? We're all different, right?
Right.
That's a great distinction, Kevin. I love that. I'm going to write it down.
And
Kevin's
so,
platinum rule.
there we go. And and so when you meet managers like Caitlin, how when you met with her to kind of understand her mindset, what was that mindset? Where did she go? Well, this is where I learned to model this from?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it comes from experience or having someone who behaved that way when she was coming up, right? And so unfortunately, though, too few of them have that experience, or they have to learn it the hard way. Now, she's been a manager for 4 or 5 years now. So, she's probably learned that I do better. I get better results. My customers get better service. I have a more enjoyable time at work when I take care of my team. When I'm more understanding when they ask for a day off on Friday night, when they call in and say, they have a big test tomorrow and they can't work. When you give room for all that stuff, you build credibility, you build trust. And so she's learned that may be a harder path on Friday night when then you're short, but in the long run, you're building this team that will they'll do anything for her now. They will do anything for her now. Because she has invested so much in them personally, right? And that's what your platinum role is about. It's like, it's not about how you want to be treated. It's how they want to be treated. I hear a lot of old school managers talk about, kids these days, or, franchise owners. And I'm like, guys, we got to move past that. Kids these days, they're your workforce. So you can adapt and meet them where they're at, or you can continue to struggle. Those are your two choices. Wage rates are not going to come down. Availability of workers is not going to increase. So for you to maintain the people that you have, you've got to meet them where they're at. And that means taking care of them the way they want to be taken care of.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you speak to those people, the franchise owner, the senior leaders saying, look, those kids, which at one point in time, we were those
We were
kids.
those. That is
Yeah.
the irony of it. I knew
Yeah.
I've heard that before, right? Our parents said the same thing, right?
Yeah, it's like
Kids these days.
I'm like, you were a kid these days, and you probably did the same boneheaded things. As just you didn't have the technology, didn't have the other distractions and things that you said. You had your vernacular phrases that your parents thought was weird. Just as much as I listened to my son and his friends, I'm like, I have no idea what you're saying. But like, I mean, just like laughing, like, word of the year is Riz. I'm like, what the heck is Riz? And now I'm sounding like really old school. I'm not. I'm an elder millennial.
My
But
nephew said, it's drippy. And I'm like, is that a good thing? Well, it turns out it is. Drippy is like the new ultra cool if you have drip.
there we
But
go.
yeah, I mean, to your point, we were them.
But it is very important. I know when I work with organizations where you've got teenagers or really young adults who are coming into the workforce who are like, we don't know anything, and there's a significant age gap between them and their managers, just depending on the industry. But a lot of them that choose to stay, like, it's because the managers treat them as human beings, individuals. Like, okay, I don't have to speak the same language
No,
as you, but I will treat you with respect. I will meet you where you are. I will do my best to understand what's going on in your world. And once I have that understanding, then we can have an expectation level of, well, this is what we need to do to get the job done.
right. That's exactly right. So many of the folks coming into our stores and our restaurants, they don't necessarily have a great home life. And so it's a chance for them to find a place where they can be a part of a team, maybe for the first time, a place where they can know that what they do matters, that someone's relying on them. But to foster all that, you've got to have right tools and skills. And we have to start at the baseline. I met with this group of area coaches. So these would be the people above the restaurant level. And I said, hey, what are some things you would want to tell a new leader to never do? So what are some things you would want to tell a leader never do? And I thought they would say like never lie or never, cheat to get your results. Kevin, guess what the number one thing they said that a new leader should never do, or a leader should never do? You're on me. I can't hear you, man. Hello?
All right, try that again.
You're back.
All right. To my answer, I would be like, well, if I was a new leader, I would probably say, don't yell at your people.
Don't yell at your people. That's a good one, and it did show up on the list. But the number one thing this group of more senior leaders would say to brand new leaders, the number one thing was, don't sleep with your team. Now, what does that tell you about where they're at?
Yeah, that's
they don't know.
And that's a really good one. That I obviously my mind's not in that spot. Like I would, but I will say, I met my ex-wife in a job interview. Luckily, I didn't hire her for the job. I did give her another job offer, and eventually she accepted that one, and we dated and became my wife. But yeah, it's interesting. That is not a top.
You wouldn't have thought of it, right?
Yeah.
Because it seems so obvious. Like, no, of course you shouldn't date your team, right? But that's the level of where they're coming into the leadership, right? They don't know. They don't realize how fraught that is with, a disaster. The number two thing, to your credit, was don't yell, panic, or lose your stuff in front of your team. That was the number two thing that.
Oh, good. At least I'm somewhere in the top two.
Number three was don't talk bad about the company, and number four was don't lie.
So, and those are all good.
But that just shows you, like, we're not talking sophisticated leadership concepts here, right? We've got to meet these guys where they're at.
No, and that's as I think about, so where I live, our average age for the community is 32. Really young community. Yeah. Which means there's a lot of young professionals, coming into the community. They're coming straight out of college into the workforce. So it makes sense that at that level, yeah. I mean, and granted, I remember there was a statistic like for romantic relationships, 40% of people meet their significant other in the workplace.
At work, yeah.
And so that is definitely good advice. Don't sleep with your subordinates.
Yep.
I mean, that's thank you, President Clinton, for all of that one.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps it shouldn't just be what every new leader should know, but every leader should know that. Now, yes. Granted, some people make bad decisions, but at the level I'm talking about, we have to spell these things out really, really specifically.
No, that's really good. So I kind of want to pivot just a little bit. So your career, you started you started in the military and managed a restaurant, and then you elevated up to COO. So as you kind of went in your career, I want you to kind of speak to the lessons learned as you kind of went up the ladder, because I know there's going to be a lot of people who are listening or who read your book going, well, what lessons did Monica learn along the way as she kept elevating her career that would be important for me as I elevate my career?
Sure. I mean, over the course of 30 years, it was step by step, one job at a time. In human resources and operations, I did work at, Taco Bell. I worked at KFC. I worked at Pizza Hut. I never forgot where I came from. And I always remembered that the business happens at that restaurant. There's no place else where you collect cash except at that restaurant. We don't sell any other goods except at that restaurant. And that anchored me to the business in a way that I think it was helped me be differentiated. I think the other things that I learned from running a restaurant was about caring for people, about, I talk in the book about there's no such things as corporate goals. We may in senior positions want to believe there's corporate goals, but there really isn't. There's one goal, and that's the team's goals. And if the team doesn't set those goals and rally behind them, it's just words and wallpaper, right?
Yep.
But the minute you can get a team to go, let's be the fastest, KFC in all of Columbus. Let's be the best. Let's get the highest scores on customer service in all of, Des Moines. As soon as you can get a team to rally around a goal, then you've unlocked magic. And then they're willing to do all the things that you want them to do that are required. But if you just kind of spell out, this is what we need to do, and they're not bought into the goals, it's just a task then, and it's optional, and you don't get 100%. And that carries through regardless of where you are in the organization. If you're going to do goal setting and you're alone in a room, you're probably making a mistake. To do true goal setting, you should have the entire team around you with whiteboards and, magic markers, figuring out and spelling out, what do we want to do? Who do we want to be? Probably the third thing that was my unlock was saying yes. And I say this to all leaders, particularly the women. You've got to say yes to every opportunity that comes your way. A lot of times I see leaders do the half no or the slow no. Look something like this. Hey, would you be interested in, the next position, becoming an area coach or a district manager? And the response will be something like, no, I have kids, or no, I'm not really sure, and the minute they don't say yes forever, then the people above them are like, they're not interested in development. Even relocation, I tell people, unless you really can't relocate, just check yes. You don't have to say, well, it depends where. Of course it depends where, right? You can figure that out once you have a job offer, but in the beginning, just say yes if you can at all, because otherwise you're limiting the possibilities before you even know what they are. So say yes to every project and every new challenge that you're faced with. That was a big unlock for me, saying yes to all of the opportunities and all of the challenges that got presented. And oftentimes it was the job no one wanted, the company no one wanted, the country no one wanted. And then you go there and you do a good job and you get noticed.
Nice. I love those lessons, and I love the goal setting piece probably the most. I'm a huge goal setter, and I think it's really important um, for teams to be involved in the whole process. It's not just a leader's responsibility. Now, obviously, the leader has a goal in mind that they want to set the vision for, but
Right.
you may hear something from somebody who is the lowest person on the team saying, well, I really would love to do this or see us do this, and go, you know what? That's an amazing idea. And like, yeah, let's incorporate that. I think it's so important because each person has a unique perspective. And I think as leaders, like we need to be open-minded enough to go, every response, even though it may sound horrible,
Yeah.
just accept just give them the freedom to say, hey, this is what I think. Great, put it on the paper.
It's faster. Sure. It's faster for me to sit in my office, create my PowerPoint and say, here's the goals for the year. It's fast.
Yeah.
But they're not their goals. They're my goals. And
Yeah.
then if you don't have the buy-in, you're not going to get the results. You create them as a team, and then it's amazing what happens, and the creativity and the buy-in, the commitment and the focus, and then they're there for each other too, right? People sometimes I think look down on fast food. The reality is when there's the right leader with the right team, it is a fun, amazing experience. And that's why people stay. I had cooks at KFC that stayed 20 years. Why? Because it was their home. It was where they felt appreciated. It was where they knew they were making a difference. They were proud of the work they were doing. They're proud of the chicken or the pizza that they were making. So, again, going back to the same point, my goal is to help these leaders and really help their leaders help them create the environment where business can grow and people can thrive. It's
I
that
love
simple, really.
I love it. I love it. Or as I jokingly called out in Fort Worth, that you're helping people live Moss.
There you go. That's right. Live Moss. That's right.
Well, Monica, it is time for last call. And so
Okay.
for
That's
our
important.
leaders this week, what is something that they can be doing to be a better leader?
So it's a busy time of year, right? And one thing I would challenge everyone who's listening to this, no matter when you're listening to it, is the minute it's over, pick up your phone and send a text message to someone on your team that you appreciate. 3 sentences, 2 sentences, what you appreciate and why. It's the simplest, easiest thing to do, but you will change someone's day and maybe their week. And by the way, you'll feel great about it too, because the reply back you get will tell you a whole lot about how you're seen as a leader.
I love that. I love that. Yes, definitely. Send that text. And I had somebody, a few years ago say, yeah, tell somebody you appreciate them. So, whether that's writing them a letter, bringing them their favorite food, or just, hey, just making the recognition of, I appreciate you. And there is that psychological piece in there for you as the leader that you go,
That's right.
hey, I feel good. I've got great people on my team. You may look at your team and go, man, we struggle. But when you take the moment and go, you know what? I do appreciate the people that are on my team, even the ones that are the hardest to deal with, and just say, you know what? I do appreciate you. You do bring something different. And you see that shift.
I start every one of my keynotes with this activity, because just that little thing, just that little act of sending a quick text can change the trajectory of somebody's day. And if I've got a room full of 1,000 people, that's 1,000 people who get a little message saying, hey, I sure appreciate what you're doing. What you do matters. Who you are and how you show up is important to me. And that's how we start to kind of reframe how people think about work, how people think about our industry.
I love it. Well, Monica, how can our listeners learn more about you? And you got the book coming out soon. You do a lot of speaking. You've got some great things. How can they connect with you, find you, all the great things you're doing?
Well, for your listeners, I do have a special giveaway. I told you about the list of things that leaders should know, list of things that leaders should never do. So if you text me at Monica, just my name, Monica, text Monica at 33777, 33777. I will send out that a PDF of that list, which is a great little tool for you to use with your frontline leaders. My book, Lessons from the Drive Thru, Real Life Wisdom for Frontline Leaders, will come out in late Q1. And you can find all about that, how to get it, on my website, which is monicarothgery.com. And I would love to come to speak to organizations. I love speaking to frontline leaders, but more often I'm speaking to the bosses of frontline leaders about how to inspire them, how to empower them, how to use some of these tactics and tools and strategies to make the most out of the frontline leaders you have working for you, whether that's in, a C-store, a gas station, a restaurant, a hospital, a hotel, all of the people that lead those that serve your guests. So you can reach me at monicarothgery.com.
I love it. Well, Monica, thank you so much for joining me today for a pint, or for you, a pour bourbon.
Thanks, Kevin.
and a great conversation. Again, I loved meeting you when we were all together in Fort Worth. I knew your story from just getting to hear snippets. I'm like, Monica needs to come on and share her story, because it's right up my alley. And I know it's definitely up yours for what you've taken to take the time to write a book and invest into those frontline managers. And so just thank you so much for today.
Thank you, my friend. I mean, I appreciate you. I appreciate the platform. And I was excited that this would be the first podcast I ever did. So
I'm honored to take your podcast virginity.
Cheers.
Cheers. Well, thank you so much for listening to the Leaders and Loggers podcast. Hey, if you loved what you heard today, we'd love for you to share it with another leader that you know. We're available on all the major streaming platforms, and you can watch all of our videos on YouTube. And I hope you'll join us next week for another Pint and Conversation. We'll see you there.